Recruitment isn't actually your biggest problem. Retention is. If you're constantly hiring, firefighting people issues, or feeling stuck managing a growing team, this episode is for you. Welcome back to the Kent Business Show. I'm Rachael Bryant, and today I'm joined by Sam Bearman, founder of Bearman HR, who takes a very different and refreshingly practical approach to HR. In this episode, we explore what really sits behind high staff turnover, why people management becomes harder as businesses grow, and how a more holistic approach to HR can change the way teams perform and stay. We talk honestly about why so many businesses feel stuck managing their people, how leadership and accountability play a huge role in culture, and what business owners can do to stop being pulled to the constant day-to-day issues and start building something more sustainable. If you're growing a business and want a stronger, more resilient team without constant pressure, this conversation will really resonate. Let's get into it.
Kent is powered by business, and every business has a story. Join your host, Rachael Bryant, on the Kent Business Show as she meets the businesses powering Kent, sharing their journeys, their experiences, and what they've learned along the way. A real conversation with real people, giving you real inspiration. This is the Kent Business Show, powered by your video team.
Fab Sam, welcome to the studio.
Thanks for having us.
No worries. So tell us about Bearman HR, because you have a more holistic approach, you call it, to HR. So tell us about that.
So the holistic approach to HR is that people management, and it comes from an employed background of sort of 13 years, which I'll touch on in a second, but a strategy based around people management of attraction, engagement, development, retention. So, and they're all intrinsically linked. So attracting great people into your business, engaging them in the right way for that responsibility and accountability of roles, developing them for organisational growth, and retaining the ones that you want to keep, and maybe not retaining the ones. There's a yin and a yang to it.
Subtly that way.
That's it. And it comes from, first of all, falling into recruitment after doing the law degree. Graduated in the peak of recession, 2009, so no training contracts available going to law. Went into recruitment, worked a way up, got headhunted, so on and so forth. So, and then moved into, within the recruitment world, you learn how to source candidates from an agency perspective. You then go into internal recruitment and you learn about cultural fit and very much the analogy square plug round hole. So go down the line of accountancy side of things, whereby, you know, a practice that uses spreadsheets versus a practice, or even a practice that uses Xero versus QuickBooks. Okay. So a candidate that's great square plug on paper, but likes using Xero. But this practice likes using QuickBooks. They don't go down the assessment process and that side of things. Square plug round hole. So in somewhere they will be a good fit, but not necessarily this fit. And that's the difference there. And then after that, you go into HR and you learn about the onboarding side of things, the probation, and how you actually source candidates, get better fits, but then retain them. Yes. And then the HR, almost the analogy of from the recruitment side of things, you drop your kids off at school for the first time, and then you walk away and leave them, and then they're out in the big bad world of line managers, and then HR set them up on the right foundations, and then go on the lines of engagement, development, and retention there afterwards. And that's ultimately like some of the wins that we've had, you know, in the last 18 months, 96.7% retention on hires that we've had. So that's a little bit on the strategy side of things. Why we set up Bearman HR, again, always from the recruitment side of things, the skill set of going out and winning organic business and working with businesses that you want to work with. That's very much on the recruitment agency side of things. And within HR, the employed world side of things, which I always knew would be different to the consultancy side, very, very different. The employed side, I almost liken it to the poison chalice in like football management. You know, like the England job that nobody wants, or at the moment, I'm not a Man United fan, but the Man United job, especially coming from like, you know, a big figure of Sir Alex Ferguson or whatever. And you wear multiple hats in HR. You've got the hat of HR and precedent. You've got inconsistency. You've got the hat of the MD and the organisation. And then you've also got the hat as a fellow employee. So you're pulled three which ways all the time. And the saying of you can't be true to two. You know, so you're defending the organisation, and unfortunately staff, that ain't great. And you got your hat as a fellow employee, or you're challenging the leadership team in terms of, hold on a second, this is the way
we're saying this.
Exactly that. And it's difficult. Whereas on the consultancy side of things, I don't know whether it's the way that we land the messages. I don't know if it's about perception, but it's very much, this is where you stand. This is where you want to get to. You agreed. These are the elements that you need to do to facilitate that achievement. Very much working on a North Star perspective, and then working backwards and filling in the gaps. And again, owners, line managers on the consultancy side of things, our clients, they don't always go with our suggestion first time, but invariably they do. And I don't know how, I've not mastered it yet, but in terms of that, how the approach works and that side of things. But that's ultimately why HR exists, what we come to.
Incredible. And what I love about it as well is the fact that ultimately, when it comes to HR and when you're working with a broad spectrum of businesses, is that we find that when you're talking to someone, they're surrounded by the same industry, so they feel like you've got to use these techniques. Whereas by you coming in and saying, well, actually, you might be a law firm, but this, this bakery has introduced HR this way, and have you thought of doing it that way? And then they try something completely off their radar, and they're like you say, probably a bit like, how is this going to work? But all of a sudden, having that outside perspective, it opens up a new door to them. And like, oh yeah, this is working much better. Why were we following a trend that wasn't actually working for us? We just felt we had to.
That's it. Yeah, you only know what you know, and it sounds obvious, but you really don't know what you don't know. And the side of things that we go down is that whether you are manufacturing, construction, hospitality, not-for-profit, charity, for that side of things, or retail, that attraction, engagement, development, retention fits. It's a holistic solution that works no matter what. And that's very much on the employed side of things that we did. From that side of things, you've got the typical analogy that money creates or sales creates gross turnover. So you can survive in business, rob Peter to pay Paul. But the real art of thriving and the real art of business, this is where we go down the lines on the people management, the proactive side of things versus reactive, is leveraging profit. Staff are assets. We don't typically hire staff just to be compliant, nice policies, contracts of employment, we know when we're getting paid and we know where the locker is and that side of things. They're all prerequisites. You hire staff to facilitate the customer journey, whether you are a solicitor or whether you are the manufacturing it. And this is quite a journey that our clients go on that aren't that typical fast-moving consumer goods even, because that's the easiest way to describe it. How you get materials in, how you form and shape them into something that you sell, like a sheet bit of metal, like a fire damper, for example, square box, tack it, shape it, bend it, wrap it up on a pallet, out it goes. Then you've got the aftercare side of things, your compliance, your British standards, whatever it may be. There'll be some form of compliance. And then the after sales in terms of the logistics, getting to the customer, instructions manual, whatever it may be, so that the cycle comes back round. So either more business or referrals or investment, that profit that you make that you can invest to grow the business again. Now you talk about that's very much a manufacturing model, but what difference is that to HR practice or solicitors or hospitality? Your hospitality is all about driving footfall through to the business. Get people in front of you. And then how you, say, for example, you're typically weddings and events, how you then maybe transition and diversify into networking, how you diversify into wakes and that side of things.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you've got new service pillars, growth, and that side. And again, in terms of the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, strengths are obvious, weaknesses, we don't have the right people. Okay, let's now go out and create a strategy to get that attraction, the right people in. But how can you attract people if the candidates and the job market see that you've got a high turnover rate? Why would I come and work for you?
Yeah.
And conversely, from an MD perspective or line managers, why would we develop and engage and invest in staff if we can't get the right people in the first place? They're leaving every 12 months. And that's where we typically come in. We typically come in when there's been a bit of a dysfunctional culture, maybe toxic, or businesses that are quite stale in terms of where they are and they want to go to the next level. And I'll give the answer that can now shut down the whole show. It's it's the blend of leveraging responsibility and accountability.
Okay.
It's as simple as that. But what happens is this is the brain, very logically process driven, thought, methodical, and that side of things. Emotion, you can't.
Over.
Yeah, that's it. You can't say it, and you leverage that back. So responsibility, and this is where you use HR. It sounds boring, but it helps because it sanitises things and removes that emotion in terms of processes like one-to-ones, job descriptions, appraisals. How are your tools? Hammer, chisel, ruler, and that side of things. And it's not necessarily Jenny bashing John over the head or Adam being mouthy to Ian and that side of things, and all the sort of bits of relationships and toxic side of things you get within cultures. And yeah, that's it.
I love it because as a business and as you grow, it always does seem to be like recruitment is the hardest thing. But then once you overcome that sort of initial hurdle, I think if you get it right, like you say, and you find the right people who you retain with, and that the journey is much smoother. But I've been in careers before where, like you say, you've got that turnover all the time, and what one person walks into and you're like, yeah, great, here's the SOPs, crack on, and they're off and they're in a great element and they know what to do. The next person, I'm like, here's the SOPs. They're like, what do I do with that? How do I? And I'm like, hang on, that guy got it. You don't, but you're thriving another way. How do you balance that?
So this is where we talk about proactive HR over reactive, and he's very, very aggressive, but in a nice way. And when people or clients, prospective businesses say we have a recruitment problem, 9 times out of 10 they actually have a retention issue that you've alluded to there, Rachel. And the way to remove your recruitment need is to reduce it. Super aggressive, and that is focusing on the engagement and development side of things. So going to logistics, for example, Class 1 drivers. Class 1 drivers are notoriously difficult to manage. They have this thing called a Class 1 licence, which is a lorry licence. And because that's bespoke, that gives them a sense of entitlement, and they're professional drivers, and they're a little bit above the standard and that side of things. And transport managers will all be laughing now, saying, yeah, you need a little bit of white glove treatment and that side of things. But the way to aggressively tackle that is to reduce their leverage that they've got over you and reduce your recruitment need. And the way to do that, simply little wheels to big wheels. Create stuff. You have staff in your organisation and you go down the lines of development plans, that boring tool called the appraisal, or the one-to-ones. Your one-to-ones, you identify talent that can be developed, and then you put it into a process of development plan, one-to-ones, and you take staff from van drivers, 7.5 tonne, Class 2, Class 1. You've got that succession planning. You've now got business resilience. And guess what? The initial issue of that recruitment need, you no longer have one.
Because you've built that person with you,
that's it.
Who actually then ends up thankful that you have given them that opportunity and that growth, so stays with you for that as well.
Yeah, let's do exactly the same with welders in engineering businesses, in terms of solicitors and that side of things. They will already naturally do it in terms of the LPC, IELTS qualifications and that side of things, apprenticeships. But it's the way to manage. You know, the answers are within the attraction, engagement, development, retention. You've just got to know which cog you're in, turn the other ones round and make it flow.
So how do you find, because obviously there's also that element of different personalities. Like I am very much ruled by emotion. It's who I am. I know I am. Like if you phone me and go, oh, my dog's sick today, I'm like, oh my gosh, how can I help? What can I do for you? And then I walk in the door and I'm like, damn it, I've got a business to run still. How do you help people and businesses balance those sides of things?
So there's a couple of points in there. So in terms of the individual side of things, we'll touch on that in a second in terms of line management course. We do individual learning styles, group dynamics and that side of things. But the latter part of that is about policy and process. So I'll give you an example of where we've reduced absence within a business in the last 24 months, from 9.7% down to 1.7%. And pre-COVID, the national average was 2%. So I think everyone's still on a little bit of an aftermath of COVID, like this week. So many personal plans have been cancelled because of COVID. So won't mention the C word because I don't know. But again, this is how you use the sort of specialist HR knowledge, the consultancy that we are, along with the boring HR tools. So, for example, in terms of absence, timekeeping, that side of things, you would use a process called Bradford Factor, so which will create a consistent set of rules and parameters and boundaries that all staff need to achieve. So if you hit one absence, you'll get a certain score and you'll have triggers in terms of a verbal warning, written warning, final written, dismissal, that side of things, right? But what you want to do is create a consistent culture across the whole organisation, whereby if somebody has a Monday club absence, you've got an operative, an admin assistant, as well as the MD, all pulling in the same direction and going, Sam, you took the Michael, you're off, because we're all accountable to this. We're all accountable to producing brilliant service, getting goods out of the door, whatever it may be. And that comes down to the consistency of the process, but also the culture in terms of the one-to-one. In terms of when you go through that process of implementing a new system, because that's change management, you then get the result at the end, you go back in terms of reward. So, for example, staff might want to leave early, staff might want to invest in training themselves, they may want a pool table, whatever simply that it may be, you have that reward and that side of things. So.
And when it comes to, is recruitment your sort of core baseline, or are there other areas of
the core baseline, as I said before, in terms of the proverbials hit the fan. Managers or owners have had enough. And they wouldn't forgive me in saying this, they're broken. They're done with it. And it's that either toxic culture or dysfunctional. And we come in and it's that blend of system and process as well as engagement and motivation.
Are there ways of, when starting a business? I remember when I came into your video team to work with Ben, we had this plan. He was in the business and I was going to be coming on the business to build it and grow it, because as soon as you get swallowed in it, you find yourself sort of swimming all the time. But very quickly, it's like quicksand. And I stepped into the business and then fell into the business. And now it's that climb out. Are there ways to enable you to sort of be on the business without being in it early doors?
Yeah. So again, this is more the structure side of things. So then prerequisites that we talk about in terms of job descriptions. And job description is, we have a saying at Bearman HR, it's the banana-rama, it ain't what you do, it's the way that you do it, and that's what gets results. And quite often we go into organisations, they have job descriptions, they have one-to-ones, they have staff appraisals, they have recruitment processes, and we come in and give that sprinkling in. And that's the difference between specialist support and stand and try and do it yourself, or that dreaded word Google, ChatGPT. But we do use ChatGPT, disclaimer, that side of things. So on that blend of, because this is akin to myself, early days in Bearman HR, different hats, owner, also employee. So you're constantly working on the business, in the business and that side of things. And it's about having a job description that structures and facilitates that. Instead of a great big shopping list, we go down the line to the template of key purpose of the role, key responsibilities, key KPIs. That's it. And you'll have 3 or 4 on each, because, making sure Sam turns up on time, making sure he answers the call within 24 hours, they're non-negotiables in order to achieve service excellence at all times. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So the purpose is why you exist. That's our North Star in terms of where we're going. So that train is leaving the station and it's going to St Pancras. Okay, fine. But what station? So that goes into the responsibilities. All right? It's going to leave Chatham Station. Fine. Okay. In terms of the KPIs and that side of things, what time? It's going to leave at 25 past on the hour every hour, because that's what time it leaves. You now know where you need to be, where you're going, and when you need to be there. And from a functional side of things, that is what managers should know. SMART objective. Specific, measured, agreed, realistic, timed. Instead of just, can you crack on and do that for me? It's, you need to do that. That's why we need to do it. That's what's going to be measurable about it. that responsibility and accountability. Responsibility is what's yours and what's ownership to yours. Accountability is the measure of success and failure. And not necessarily failure to bash over the head, but to pause, stop, and understand why. Is that the employer needs to give more support or tools or investment, whatever it may be, to give the facilitation for success? Or does the employee need to change something different? It's suck it and see. Because no one ever gets everything 100% right the first time. There's no mistake in making a mistake. It's not learning from it. So you can now, in the structure that I'm giving, you can now start to understand and see, okay, I can now have the tools in the room to blend from working on the business to in the business, on and in, because you've got that structure and that parameter to move within. And the way that you do that and to keep consistently on course, another boring tool, your one-to-ones. So you know that, for example, you and Ben, you're going to sit down every quarter, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, half hour, however long it needs to be, to review the success and failure of this structure, because this is the North Star and where we want to go. And this is how you can start to see line managers. I was a line manager quite a few times before moving into HR in terms of recruitment. You're thrown in. You're the best one on the pod, best one on the bench, best one in the fleet. You now do it and you think, oh, yeah, I'll have a bit more bang for buck in my back pocket. Yeah, no worries. Then all of a sudden, very quickly, you start to realise, hold on a second, I'm no one's mate no more. No. I'm not their enemy, and I'm the one getting it in the neck, and I'm getting it in the neck from above. You know what? Stuff this management lark. I'm going to revert back to my comfort blanket, finance, transport, manufacturing.
Yeah.
And all you end up being is the other operative. So, right, I know I can produce a good set of year-end accounts. That's what I do. But all the rest of the work and the efficiencies that you get from managing the team, and they're lost. So from an owner perspective, you're now paying a line manager salary, but you still got an employee. You know?
Yeah.
And the line management course, masterclass, we call it a masterclass because you often hear of management and leadership being thrown all into one. Two completely different things. For us, management is much more delegation and task orientated. Leadership is much more facilitation, inspiring, naming the clue, leadership, leading. But from a line management perspective, no matter where you are, whether you're the director or a team leader, your bigger responsibility and accountability is actually line management. So when you're in these leadership type positions, I'm now part of the SLT, I'm a general manager, transport, whatever it is, focus on leadership, great, inspiring and motivating, engaging that side. But the functional, real basic analogy of I've got 5 plates to set up and spin, but I've only got enough room or capacity for 3, you need to learn the art of delegation and management and task completion, which feeds into understanding your responsibilities, which you're already misaligned on, being able to communicate with staff, give feedback, spot behaviours both good and bad, learning individual learning styles and behaviours because team and individual are completely different, how to frame and set objectives and targets like we just done there, gave a very, very quick whistle-stop tour, and how to continually review. Because when you implement them structures and processes, that's how you start to achieve facilitation and results that adds a bigger picture of where you're going and helps you fight, adds more and more data to the melting pot to make that informed decision of where we need to go. And straight away there, you are impacting the efficiency. You go back to that sales side of things, gets the gross turnover in. When you impact the efficiency needle of the operation, whether it's giving advice or hammering something, you're impacting the profit and loss needle straight away. And that's the way to thrive and succeed.
Amazing. So with the masterclass that you mentioned, is it a case of a business that's got a team of sort of 5 or 10 on the SLT and says, right, come in and put them all on? Or is it that you have mixed days as well, where you might be approached by 5 to 10 different businesses and you've got singles from different businesses? How does that work?
It's both, Rachel. So there's some organisations that say we've got a SLT of 10, 15, come in and do it for just us.
Yeah.
And come in, create a very bespoke package for them, understand strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and deliver a bespoke package on that side. And there's some that turn around through size, say, I'm the only line manager in the organisation, or we've got a team of 3. We like the idea of learning from different industries and different line managers and that side, and create a course in that instance, which is a bit more generalistic, But again, the way that we deliver the training, you can see the individual issues within business, open group discussions as well, and we go down that side of things. So the last sort of course that we've done, construction, manufacturing, financial advice, food manufacturing, logistics, and retail.
Yeah. You had them all on the course together.
And I'll say at the beginning, same poo, different day. You've all got the same issues.
You've all got the same problems.
It's just that one's called Jan, one's called Bob, one's called Sam. And you'll start to understand, and this is what I mean by the theory side of things can come across as boring, but they are just tools to use. And you understand that, okay, you might go into, and I use the line of some of the most complex industries I worked in, spectroscopy. So it took me about 3 months to be able to say spectroscopy.
I was going to say, I was like, what?
And ultimately, that's just UV light. So manufacturing, and they produced out of a spectrometer, so you'll get a bit of oil or butter, and it'll be able to tell you every single ingredient within it. And they built one part of the overall, it's like a car. So they built the exhaust, for example. That's the way I got it explained. So again, your sales guys would need a PhD to be able to explain it and sell to universities, laboratories, and that side of things. But you have the same people management process and strategy for there as you did in the previous organisation in terms of fire dampers. That's just sheet metal. You're a guy on the fly press wheel doing that 200 times a day. That's it. Exactly the same. Same challenges, absence, performance, culture, team, succession planning, all that sort.
Okay, well, Sam, I think there's so much there, and I'm looking forward to listening back to this myself and stealing some more of your knowledge. It's great getting it firsthand. We're going to jump over to our sponsor, but then after that, I'd love to dive more. Again, we've touched on that team and individual dynamic basis, is how obviously going from treating that person as an individual to then watching them into a team environment. So yeah, we'll jump on that right after our sponsor.
This podcast episode was produced by your video team and recorded right here at YVT Studios. We're a full-service content studio helping coaches, creators, and business owners turn conversations into content that connects. Need a professional space to film your podcast? We've got it. Want someone to handle the filming, editing, and strategy? That's what we do best. Looking to walk away with months of high-quality video content, all filmed in one day? Book a VIP content day. Whether you're hands-on or hands-off, we'll guide you through the process, keeping it simple, stress-free, and seriously effective. It starts with a conversation. We turn that conversation into content, and that content builds your brand. Your video team, making you the hero of your brand.
So welcome back. I'm still here with Sam Bearman from Bearman HR. So Sam, just before the break then, we were just about to dive into like individuals, teams, and the learning styles, and obviously understanding it's so hard, isn't it, when you've got such a vast team and you're trying to treat them all individually, but also they learn differently one-to-one. And when you then go, there's the team, and you're like, oh, hang on.
And it also feeds into forming team dynamics yourself. So there's a couple of theories that we go down the lines of, like a boring word again. So the Honey and Mumford, norming, storming, forming, performing. So a lot of people have probably heard this, but I don't think people, or line managers, don't understand how quickly dynamics change. And I mean, HR professionals will laugh at this. A new printer coming into the machine, noisy printer, or moving people about in the same office. That norming, nicety, I'll make you a cup of tea, I'll get the chair for you, and that side of things. Then into the forming, storming, and ultimately performing. But even going before that, there's a exercise that we do in terms of based around behaviours, individual learning style of typically an activist, pragmatist, reflector, and theorist. And I'll give you a brief overview. Activist is your typical squaddy, salesman, don't need asking twice, jump and do it. The pragmatist is what is called the smarter activist. I used to come out quite high on the pragmatism side of things. So it's, I'll do it, but what's the bang for buck for me? So there's a little bit of a buffer there from a line management perspective. The reflector is, I'm up for doing it, but I want to watch someone else do it, reflect, sit back and observe, that side of things. And the theorist is the real chalk and cheese between activism and theorist in that, can I do IKEA manual? So you get the IKEA furniture on the floor, the activist is trying to already do that, getting frustrated and shouting and swearing, and the theorist is sitting there reading everything, the tortoise versus the hare. And every single activist I've ever supported line management, they will have some form of theorist or reflector employee. And they will go, I don't understand why Jessica just can't do this. Bob's this, Bob's that. And then they're off doing a million other things. And you're like, chill out,
Steady.
mate. Slow down. Structure, So I know how to manage activists quite well. But when you sit down and say, create processes, SOPs that you talked about, policies, them functional foundation tools of HR, chalk and cheese tools, or they're anti them. But when you go down the lines of giving the theory to the theorist, a manual, and they go, and then start putting something together, the activist, jaws drop every single time, and you go, that is how to, again, from a smart perspective, how to giving feedback, communication, and then bits and pieces. Now structure it in terms of a target that facilitates even their learning style. And that's how you start to get individual performance, which is great. But that's the start of things, because not usually work as individual silos. We're part of a team. Even if we are, say, for example, marketing in an organisation or HR, we still go out and work with the other departments. Yeah. And that's where the team dynamics come in. And the theory that most people know is Bearman's, and it's based around 3 core behaviours of thinking, people, or action orientated. And again, in terms of making a project team, because again, when we work on bits and pieces as an organisation, create departments, cross-functional working, we just go, well, that needs doing, crack on, and that's it. And there's no review process. So if you've got lots of thinkers in a team, there's no action. Nothing's
ever done.
So you'll have all these wonderful ideas.
We thought about doing this. Did you do it?
That's it. And if you have lots of action-orientated people, which line managers typically are, because remember, we go back to the story, that's how they got there, being the best on the bench, best in the pod on the fleet, whatever it may be. You've got no consideration for people, no consideration for communication, no consideration for ideas. It is ultimately my way or the highway. Mm-hmm. And the analogy of loads and loads of chiefs, not a lot of Indians. And this is, again, when we go into this line management realm, these are the functional skills that they get given. And they go, that makes sense. Start to implement them in the workplace and in their teams. And from a pragmatic side of things of them, they start to see the bang for buck. And you turn, this is a really powerful way, and another saying we have in Bearman HR, not necessarily turning skeptics of HR into believers, but skeptics into promoters. They then start to run with these initiatives and we step back. And that's the way to create functioning teams, high-performing teams, and we know we've done a good job.
So you alluded there that you have more actionists are leaders because they, or in management roles. Do you find, and can the other personality types work as leaders?
Yeah, essentially, and without being sexist, most thinking is done by ladies. As guys,
I read those in IKEA instructions, absolutely.
Yeah. And the creativity side of things. So again, blokes, no, that's the way we've done it, that's the way we've always done it, and that's the way it has to be done.
So I laugh so loudly then because I'm like, yep, I've heard that a few times, and, predominantly by men.
I'm guilty of that myself, So ultimate hypocrite. Sam HR, yeah, very fluid and laissez-faire. Personal, no, that's it, that's the way I'm doing it, and that's all there is to it. So, but it's about listening to other ideas and creating that team of that to get, again, to get data into the melting pot so we can make that informed decision for efficiency. That's the end purpose. The quicker we can do things, the less waste, the more accurate for repeat business, for growth, for opportunities and that side of things. That's our end outcome. And again, from an individual management side of things, when we're doing the line management calls, I have an issue with someone not wanting to do something, someone behaviour standards falling down. Okay, what is the North Star? What do we want the outcome to be? What is the purpose of that role? Is it aligned within the job description, the one-to-ones, appraisals and that side of things? If it's not, review them and do them again. Because again, it's not what we do, it's the way that we do it. But if they're not there, create them.
Mm-hmm. The hardest thing when it comes to recruitment, weirdly, is actually what I would say is ending recruitment.
Yeah.
So, we talk about teams, and you touched on it earlier with the round pegs, square holes and things like that, is if you've fallen into a square hole and you're a round peg and that continually goes on, either you're not feeling great in that role, but you think, oh gosh, I need a job, I'm going to stay here. Or similarly, they've hired a round peg to fit in a square hole. There seems to be that disconnect, and I think people are afraid to say goodbye.
Yeah.
How do you approach these things? I always liken it to my emails. So we have our email sequence, but since putting on there, bigger and bolder than ever, you can unsubscribe if you want to. Okay. I have less unsubscribers because the door's open and they're like, oh, do you know what? She doesn't mind if I go. But I have less people now leave me. And it's almost like because I found the right people, so they're sticking around. The unsubscribers went in a day.
So,
how do you do that in a workplace?
So we signed up the Bearman HR in terms of recruitment, HR, that side of things. This is where the 96.7% retention comes in. You ascertain them in the probation period. You should even ascertain them in the recruitment process. So it's called a recruitment and selection assessment process. That's what it's traditionally called. And not let's sit over the table, have a cup of tea, I like you like me, seems like a good bloke, seems like a good lady, yeah, okay, let's crack on and do it because it's difficult and I've got loads of other things to do and I don't really want to be doing this process. It's assessing the skill sets and also the suitability for the team and environment. As appreciation, you need your culture set up and that side of things. But it should be happening in the selection process. So your pre-screening, your interviews in terms of competency, but also bring the job to life. So go back to that Xero and QuickBooks. That's solved like that by going, do me some bookkeeping on Xero. And then the candidate go, no, I use QuickBooks. It's done. That's it.
That's easy.
Yeah. And it's so then it transitions into, okay, can you learn this? Or in terms of the recruitment, and this is where it really nerdy, gets exciting.
I love it.
in terms of we're going to hire Bob, but in terms of their probation, we need to be super specific on the criteria that they need to achieve in terms of upskilling on Xero. And you're quantifying the success. That's how it goes down the lines of that side of things. So you want to get to that North Star success within the recruitment or the probation. But say, for example, the situation that we often find ourselves in at Bearman HR is we engage with an organisation, they're years and years down the line, 50 headcount, 100 headcount, 150, whatever. I go down the line of a business we've been working with since August 2024. They're about 70 odd in headcount. First started working with them, and they were at the broken stage. They'd had enough, right? And so there's a lot of toxicity that we needed to remove initially, which we do. They're now at 90-ish headcount. So there's been astronomical growth in that instance, and they're increasing services, and they're going, to put bluntly, great guns. But within that growth from 70 odd to 90 odd, wasn't only a few toxics that we had to remove and exit, because that's part of the retention strategy. There's also the growth pains as well. There's probably just less than 17, 18 that we've dismissed on top of that as well. And that's not through a nasty, we don't like you, we're going to dismiss you, bully you, so on and so forth. That's as you're laying the foundations for growth and you're ultimately in a change management process and the business is changing, are the staff changing with you?
Right. Okay. So they have that mentality, but this is how we've always done it. It's like, but the business is growing. We don't do it that way. If they're still stuck there, they don't fit anymore.
Hang on. So, and again, from a decent, the employee's responsibility, the employer's responsibility. Employee's responsibility, super simple. Contract to employment. You turn up at X time, facilitate X duties to X performance. In terms of these policies, these procedures, you'll get paid that. Happy days, you've got a job for life. The employer's responsibility, provide a safe environment, give them the tools, but ultimately hold them accountable to success. Yeah. So you go down the lines of these are your one-to-ones, these are your job description, these are your appraisals, this is what's required of you moving forward. But if you're not doing it, do we need to have a separate conversation in terms of, is this the right role for you, right company for you moving forward? And it doesn't have to be dismissals, performance reviews. Sometimes it is, because standards fall below company procedures and that side of things. You need to set examples and that side of things. But quite often, there's a separate point in the line management training that we do in terms of theory again, love a theory, adult, parent, child, and treating people like adults. And it's amazing in business how much parent-child relationships there are. And that's both a dependent and an independent relationship. You need, not all the time, because there can be subordination and that side of things, but invariably the best relationships are the mutually dependent, push and pull together. Even from a line management to employee, I need you to facilitate X, Y, and Z so we can succeed. So we're doing that together. Yeah. And it's about having grown-up conversations of that ilk that aren't discriminatory, they're not breach of employment law and unfair dismissal and that side of things, if handled in the right way. And quite often employers will say, yeah, it's not, okay, now we're on a different path, that's fine. How do we lay down the parameters and objectives to achieve the new North Star, which is you get another role, whatever it may be. And it's amazing the amount of people say, yeah, you know what, it's been on my mind for a long time. It's been a weight hanging over me. How do I go about looking elsewhere and that side of things? Again, if it's not, and there's a bit of resistance and change, there's very, very technical things that we can go through in terms of facilitating exits compliantly, employees ending up more money in their back pocket, and all employment law and all which ways, which where law degree comes in, which I leave as a bit of a tease.
Which again is why, like, it just makes sense to then have a HR that's external to the business, right? Because you have got that indifference. You're not sitting there going, well, this person's costing us this much and rah, rah, rah. But similarly, the employee's not going, well, you're on their side because of, people are going to feel fairly treated because ultimately you are that independent value. And it's strange because in my head when we first started talking, I thought, oh, this is obviously a thing where you sort of help smaller business grow to that larger business, and then I'll get to a point where I'll say, okay, help me recruit my HR. But that almost seems a bit, why would I bother ever doing that when I can have that external force that acts as that for me? Is there that benefit throughout to just have you always there?
Yeah, it's something that we've learned. Again, there's a lot of things that we've done well with Bearman HR. I've done well with Bearman HR, and a lot of them ain't via design. They just fall in the lap, really. But it comes back from doing good service. The heart of the business is service excellence. It's as simple as that. And you realise, I was at a dinner the other week and speaking to some friends about it, and the difference between when I first started out in business, you give the avalanche of what you're doing. I do this and I do that, and I'm amazing. And there's a thing called, a bit of a joke, tongue in cheek, Super Sam. Sam's always got an answer. But now it's just people ask. That's what I do. It's end outcome, and the end outcome is ultimately, if you label it, specialist support. It's just premium specialist support. So no matter what issue you get in, whether it's for growth, it's positive in terms of growth and you want to scale, whether it's a little bit turgid at the moment, or the proverbials hit the fan and we need to recover something, that's what you do. And that's it.
And I definitely feel like the HR side of things, like we've only really started exploring it at the point we're looking to grow our team. Before we were even looking to grow the team, we're like, right, what steps have we got to take? Let's get HR in to do that. So, but now I'm like, that is a retention thing. I need you there throughout. And I know we spoke about the masterclass, but you have your retainer model as well. So what's your retainer model? How does that work?
So there's three pillars of what we call them typically. The first one is executive helpline for MDs, managers, owners, and it's unlimited advice. So no matter what happens, you can pick up the phone, speak to us, and you'll get an answer within 24 hours, and that is specialist support. So very much, I need to know where I stand, just a bit of a steer. Done. The next one is in terms of the survive side of things, like I said before, in terms of giving the foundations, in terms of policy, all the advice from before, plus additional policies, procedures, and administration and that side of things. That's where you'll typically, as a business owner, we found that they're looking to make their first sort of HR hire. And we go, set up properly, foundations, and then go from there. And the last one is that holistic 12 to 18 month people plan, HR manager. And it's the simple analogy of, look, the big guys got big by doing this. I don't need to, my team don't need to be here 40 hours a week, earning 100, 150 grand, whatever it is for an all singing, all dancing HR director. At your stage in business at the moment, you need 20 hours a month, 5 hours a month, whatever. But it needs to be unlimited because we're agile, we're quick, and we need to be super proactive. So no matter whether it's the attraction side, the engagement, the development, the retention, or all four at once, it's covered within, and we fly from there. And it's based on certain specific headcounts, 1 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 20, so on and so forth, going up to 150.
Okay. So are your learning groups part of that, or is that a different?
So they're separate. So
Okay.
the recruitment side of things is separate. The line management individual learning masterclass is an individual learning course, and there's additional courses that will be coming out in the next 12 to 24 months, which I'll touch on in a second. But the recruitment side of things is, when I was a one-man band, it was a capability that I had all-encompassing, but from an operational perspective, dealing with swamp and drown and die. So you focus on the HR because you know that's the heartbeat of the people management side of things, and you can dip in and between other bits and pieces. Now, with, again, sort of 24 months down the line, learning individual clients, some of them we do the holistic sort of what would be typically called recruitment agent fee side of things.
Yeah.
But instead of just what is called a bum on a seat service, it will be designing a job properly, because if you don't design it right, you can get the best square plug, but it won't fit.
No.
It's simple as that. The assessment process, we would do the assessment process with you and we will design it. That has to be bespoke, each role, because each role is different. And that is one of the key criteria to success. Informed decision making, give our lens, and we'll give a report on each individual candidate, but ultimately it's your role. We just provide the data for that. But then the main one is the contracts, the policies, and the probation period thereafterwards. Again, go back to the employed cycle, getting the bums on the seats, assessing it for cultural fit, and then making that change stick, setting them up for success there onwards. So then it's just a nice, easy job for HR. From a good recruitment process, all that should happen is after the recruitment, you pick up in the appraisals or you pick up in the one-to-ones. And from a line management perspective, there should be no trying to fit square plug into round hole, no ongoing learning gap, no analysis that needs to be done. It's just, Ian, yeah, you're doing what you need to do. Right, where are you at with that? Okay, that's also changed. Can you jump in on that? And this is when you need to start it by. This is when it needs to be completed by. Any issues, jump in with me and we'll review it in the next 2 weeks, okay? You see the difference?
Yeah.
So we can modulate. So some organisations, we're trying to be super flexible with all clients, prospects as well as current clients. There's the all singing, all dancing package we can go and do from there. But also some organisations go, we're really good at designing the jobs and we're really good at the assessment, but we don't do probation. We just go, there's your job, there's your laptop, see you later, mate. Don't talk to you no more. So we modulate it to bum on the seat, the assessment, and then making it stick. That's the recruitment side. Wow. And that's a little bit of a cheat that recruitment agencies don't like me talking about. And I don't like talking ill of other organisations. There's some brilliant recruitment agencies that we do partner with and do work with, but they do get a bit of a bad stitch in terms of putting a candidate somewhere, 12 months later putting them elsewhere, and that side of things. But what an agency is great for is sourcing candidates that organisations can't necessarily do. That is one of their greatest skills. So again, from your service providers, leverage that for your organisation. You know, if you're weak at that, leverage that so then you can pick up the baton elsewhere.
So when it comes to recruiting people, because like you say there about the different role, and what I love there is that there was that boundary with Ian, our theoretical Ian there, of like, right, this is his role, right, this has changed, it still falls under your remit, this, and the boundary was set, there you go, do that, off you go. I think a part of the problem, like we said, is right at the beginning when you're the business owner and you're wearing all those many hats, It's always described to me as like the unicorn employee. And I'm like, right, what job role do you want? And I'm like, well, they need to this and do that and do this. And people are like, that's 5 different roles. And I'm like, no, it's not, because I do all of those. Yeah. They're like, no. I mean, can you start employing people from like 5, I'll go, right, I'll have all 5 roles then part-time and grow from there? Or is it better to go, right, let's one full-time focus and then get the next full-time focus? What's the best? Is there a best, or does it depend on the industry?
So the answer, that's a brilliant question. The answer should be based around the customer journey, the need of the customer.
Okay.
And then that's the North Star, and then you work backwards. So we have some organisations, and this comes up very, very rife in micro to small businesses. So we've got some where they've come to us for recruitment and we go, it's all outsourced. You're best, so the customer journey, it's best to outsource each individual bit. You're not at the stage of employing yet. Yeah, that facilitates the service excellence best. Some will be a blend, and some will be start off, like you said, beginning one big role and then scale it from there, and some part-time, and that's right. But this is the whole point of designing a job role, and it is so overlooked. And that's the design of it. We've got clients at the moment that typically financial wealth, and we're going through this process at the moment. There's a blend that they had all employed before, didn't work, square plug, square round holes, not getting nowhere with any employees or that side of things. And then they've gone down the lines of a blend of manager and then completely outsource. And at the moment, we haven't got the answer, so we're in the data capture moment in terms of, is it best to go employed and succession plan for that department moving forward for the next, say, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, because that manager has aspirations of their own personally and that side of things? Or is it a blend of still sticking what we're doing at the moment and doing the outsource because it's more specialist support? So this is the work that we do. I'll give you an example of the consultancy. We will data capture in terms of the current cost on the outsource side of things, and then scrutinise that against an FTE equivalent, a part-time equivalent, in terms of what is the end outcome. And the end outcome is twofold: personal to the employee, which I won't touch on, but also that service excellence and that side of things, because operationally they're compounded by things like suitable first-time letters. So that feeds the need for me to achieve that within staff. You see how the operational impacts so much on that. And then it becomes super clear what we need to do. It doesn't make it easy, but it gives us a really clear lens on what we do. So at the moment, we've got a bit of an idea, but then we go back to the drawing board. We need a little bit more data and that side of things. So in the next week, we will have where we stand, not underestimating the things that we can't control in our influence at the moment. For example, the state of the recruitment market. Is there lots of candidates available? Is there not? Do we need to headhunt? And we don't know that until we suck it and see. And this side, it's being proactive, doing bits and pieces, because they all, as long as they keep being captured in the right way, they will all feed our information and inform a good decision-making process.
Incredible. Sam, I could keep going for ages, probably quite selfishly as well, to be fair, and just have you help us recruit right now and build our own program right now. But what's next for you?
So recently we've invested quite a bit in the business in terms of a few systems tech that will keep up our sleeve, staff as well, to further strengthen the team and the capability within mostly HR at the moment. In terms of recruitment, one of the gaps I think we got, because it's very blunt and black and white, a weakness I'd even say that we've got is that headhunting, that sourcing side of things that agencies can do well. So I think we'll be looking to expand in terms of specific recruitment to give that complete holistic process, and then ultimately build retainers within that. Because organisations, I've been in organisations before that have spent 300-400 grand on agency fees, and they got a retention rate of about 60%. So not quite, but every 1 or 2 that come through, or every 2 that come through the door, they're keeping 1 point something, or every 3 they're keeping through the door, they're only keeping 1 and a bit. You know, and that's when you're paying thousands of pounds per. It's not right. And again, in defence of recruitment agency, it's not necessarily them. It's they got a retention issue. Go back to it again. So again, in terms of creating on a retained model whereby you can quantify your cost of recruitment, get specialist support, So you can either transition culture or scale. Because again, it's twofold. Businesses are easy to identify the scalability of things, but owning and accepting we may need to change the culture of things. And it's not necessarily bad, it's that we've outgrown you or you've outgrown us, you know. Because in terms of growing an organisation sustainably, yes, you need to grow the organisation, but you need to grow staff as well. Yeah. Otherwise, what you have is a capability gap. Organisation grows, staff here, and that's issues, and that's loads of customer complaints and lost customers and all the things that businesses suffer with. But if you don't grow the organisation sufficiently enough, and that clap is conflict, and that's the organisation. So sometimes it is a case of people have outgrown the organisation. So that's the recruitment side of things. On the training, there's going to be more masterclasses. Again, in terms of, I'm going to bespoke that in terms of a recruitment package in a couple of day session. As I touched on before, in terms of the difference between line management and leadership, there'll be a leadership masterclass coming out, which is completely different, based much more around that train analogy, mission, vision, value, purpose. Without them, you're leaderless, you're a ship without a rudder. And the amount of businesses that don't have that, very successful businesses even, you're missing opportunity, you're missing growth. Not with underestimating the other functional training that we'll be looking to do in terms of probation, disciplinary, diversity, inclusion, awareness, and that side of things. So that's very much the short term, in the next sort of 12 to 24 months. Thereafter, individually, probably looking at acquisition and that side of things, which I'll pause on.
Well, we'll have to get you back and see how you go with it. Sam, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
It's been a real pleasure to speak to you. We're going to grab all of Sam's details. They'll be in the show notes below, so you can find his website, find out about the courses that are going on, and just reach out to Sam, make contact, and find out how he can help you build your HR in your business. Sam, thank you again.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
If you've enjoyed this episode and you're a Kent-based business owner with a story to share, we'd love to hear from you. You can find out how to be a guest on the Kent Business Show using the link below. Be seen, be heard, be unforgettable.